Your first draft is done. Congratulations! Even if you know your project isn't finished yet, take a moment to celebrate. Lots of people think about writing a book, whether a novel, a memoir, or a work of nonfiction. Some even start. But few of those people see a draft all the way through to the end, and you did that. The hard push of drafting is behind you. Now you're standing on the edge of something new and maybe just a little intimidating. Revision. Welcome back to Write, Writer, Write. I'm your host, Deborah Froese. Today we're kicking off a 3-part mini-series called 3 Acts of Revision: Read, Plan, and Rewrite. Whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, 3 Acts of Revision will help you look at your manuscript with fresh eyes. You'll evaluate its overall structure and impact, make a meaningful plan, and tackle your next draft. Now here's where most of us go wrong. We send it to someone else to read, even when we haven't given ourselves a chance to evaluate it yet, or we jump straight into tinkering, massaging sentences, cutting words, polishing scenes. Believe me, I get it. Handing it off to someone else or rearranging your words feels far more manageable than analyzing the big picture. But sharing a first draft is not putting your best foot forward, and you can't revise by tinkering. Before you start fixing your words, you must understand what's working and what isn't. Today we're going to focus on the first act of revision: read. Just like the first act of a 3-act play, the first act of revision sets things up. This is where you stop being the writer for a little while and become the reader. A reader who wants to understand the manuscript that is, not the one you meant to write. And that's challenging. Because you've lived with your draft for so long, you have a vision of it in your head. All that knowledge filters what you see on the page. Your brain tends to fill any gaps so smoothly you may not see them. Instead, you see what you expect to see. So reading like a reader may sound simple, but it isn't easy. The first act of revision, read, has one main job: discover what exists and capture your big picture impressions. To do that well, you need to put a couple of guardrails in place. First, change the way you view your manuscript so it feels new. And second, limit your ability to tinker with it so that you can stay in reader mode. If you want to read your manuscript with fresh eyes, you'll have to trick your brain into thinking it's reading something new. Here are 3 simple ways to do that. 1. Read somewhere new, like in that chair where you curl up with a book, not your writing desk. 2. Switch the format. For example, print it out if you're used to seeing it on the screen. If you must stay on screen for any reason, change the font or the size so the words fall differently across the page. That's enough to trick your brain. And 3. If you have the luxury of time, put your manuscript aside for a few weeks. Let it rest so your brain can develop some distance before you dive in again. It's also important to limit your ability to tinker. Right now, tinkering with the text will not help. You need to look at the big picture, like making sure the foundation is poured before you start framing your house. We've been trained, often unconsciously, to think that progress means making something better or more. But in the read act, progress means reading your words freely without making changes and without judgment. If you can't avoid the urge to tinker, one of these options might work. You could use your word processor's read aloud feature or a text-to-speech app and listen while you wash the car, make dinner, or take a walk. Or you could load the manuscript onto an e-reader where you can't edit. Do whatever it takes to keep your hands off the keyboard and your head in reader mode. Even though this is not the time to tweak your text, you still need to capture your big picture impressions. And just a reminder, I'm talking about your high-level thoughts. I am not looking for details about why the first paragraph on page 50 wasn't clear. That kind of analysis comes later. To maintain your focus as you read, you'll need to find a simple way to record your impressions. One that won't tempt you to start tweaking or go down a mind-bending rabbit hole of self-criticism. Consider avoiding the computer altogether and use a pen and paper. Or you can do what I do and speak your thoughts into your phone for transcription. Once you've decided how to read your manuscript with fresh eyes and limit your ability to edit, you're ready to start reading. Read with curiosity and notice your impressions. How do you feel about what you're reading? Does it make sense? Is it clear what's happening and why? Does it go off track anywhere? With fiction, do your characters feel real? Do your scenes resonate? Does the plot drag anywhere? With nonfiction, is your argument or message clear? Is it logical, persuasive, and supported with strong examples? Whatever your genre, ask yourself, is there enough substance to keep readers engaged? Or does too much unnecessary detail weigh it down? Regardless of what I'm reading, I usually pause at the end of each chapter to capture my thoughts. As you're noting your thoughts, remember, you don't have to explain them or find solutions. Just keep track of them and keep going. And don't forget to log what's working, too. A turning point that hits the mark. A line that still gives you chills. An example that drives your point home with emotional resonance. Positive examples are important because they reinforce your confidence. If your inner critic starts whining, remind it and yourself that this is a work in progress. It's not supposed to be polished. By the end of your read-through, you'll have a set of clear observations and impressions to pave the path forward. When you're done reading, walk away. Give your thoughts a few days to simmer. Your subconscious mind will keep working on what you've read and new insights will rise. Jot them down. Then you'll be prepared for the next episode where we'll look at the second act of revision and the meaty part of the process. Plan. Before we close the curtain on the first act of revision, let's take a look at the potential for receiving external feedback. Once you finish that first draft, it's tempting to get someone else's opinion, but don't do it. Not yet. Why? Because your message or story is still rough. It could even be confusing to your readers or leave them with the wrong impression. Unless you've got a super experienced beta reader or an editor who understands they're looking at something fresh and raw, any feedback they give could be off base, against your intentions, or even discouraging. And you may not be able to recruit them again when your manuscript is really ready for outside input. Trust me, don't tap a potential beta reader's capacity until you've done everything you can do to improve your manuscript on your own. The 3 acts of revision can help. Instead of turning to beta readers right away, some writers use software tools like AutoCrit or ProWritingAid for analysis. Some even turn to large language models like ChatGPT or Claude for high-level feedback on structure and pacing. With these models, you can keep asking questions to dig deeper into the feedback for greater clarity. If you choose to experiment with digital feedback, here are a few guidelines. Treat it like a diagnostic tool, not a co-author. This will help you avoid questions about authorship and originality. Protect your work by using a private paid account with training turned off. If you get feedback that feels unsettling, don't just say, "Oh, it's the digital model's fault." Let it sit for a bit to determine whether it's really off target or if it's something you just don't want to hear. Remember, you get to decide what applies to your manuscript. Digital programs don't grasp context or nuance. They can't. They don't have human sensibilities. They operate by detecting patterns in your writing, and that can be useful. But if the digital approach isn't for you, don't worry. None of that feedback eliminates the need for you to read through your manuscript before making revisions. It just provides additional insights that may prove useful. This is just the beginning of the review process. Right now, you're not looking for solutions. You're looking for impressions, places where the manuscript holds together and places where it needs work. Sometimes the problem is clear. You'll know exactly what isn't working. But more often, you'll feel something is off before you can put your finger on it. Maybe your eyes keep returning to the same passage, or a flicker of discomfort ripples between your shoulder blades. Or maybe you even go, "Huh?" These are clues, so pay attention. Jot down what you feel: confusion, boredom, disbelief, delight, and keep on reading. In the next episode, we'll take what you've discovered here and move into the second act of revision, plan. We'll turn your discoveries into a focused plan for moving forward. Thank you for joining me today, and congratulations! You've done the hardest part. You've completed your first draft. Now, curl up in your favorite chair and appreciate your accomplishment. For more reflections on skill, storytelling, and writing with purpose, you can find me on Substack. The link is in the show notes. See you next time.